Well, I think you have my resume and you know my professional and academic background, but I'm a native Hoosier from Indiana, born and raised in Warsaw, Indiana, and northeast Indiana. Any of you who eventually may need an artificial hip or knee, two of the largest manufacturers worldwide are headquartered in my hometown, so it's probably an inflation or recession-proof community. So it's a good place to call home, our hometown. And so I did my education in Indiana at the University of Notre Dame and my graduate degree at Indiana University and my public affairs master's degree there. Started my career in state government, working for the state of Indiana, managing two small state agencies. After 5 years, wanted to give something back to my faith and worked in the Diocese of Gary in northwest Indiana to set up parish stewardship programs. During that time, met and fell in love with my wife, and she said, we're going to start our life in Indianapolis, if you don't mind. That wasn't an option. And so I worked and took my public management background into the publicly funded not-for-profit arena with Indiana Health Centers, which receive state and federal funds to provide primary health care and social services to the poor, the homeless, and the migrant farm working population at various sites around the state. I always wanted to be a city manager. Very little opportunities in my home state. It's a strong mayor state. And so my first position was in Illinois. Then I came back to Indiana. One of 8 spots in Indiana communities, Westfield, had the town manager form of government. And I worked there, which is a fast-growing suburb. Now when I left there was around 12,000. Now it's 60,000. So it's grown leaps and bounds, and we had to deal with the early stages of growth and culture change. Left there and went to a town that was dealing with economic struggles in Rantoul, who had to handle the closed Chanute Air Force Base. It was its identity. It closed 10 years before I got there, but it changed from a town that had the military presence to a town that did not have the military presence and therefore had significant economic change in those 10 years. Yet they weren't working to redevelop the base. And so I got that opportunity to jumpstart the revisioning, the redevelopment process of the closed Air Force Base. This village kept the airport open as a general aviation airport, but there's like 900 more acres that needed to be developed. Left there to work. I wanted to learn about growth management, moved to the Seattle market and managed Maple Valley, Washington for over 7 years. And what I learned about growth management is high density development to contain urban sprawl, but what they don't teach you when they're promoting that area as the hub of growth management is that they don't mandate infrastructure investment to support the growing area and the dense development. So when I was there, and it still is the most congested metropolitan area in the country, and but it's still thriving because of the tech background that is part of that economic fabric of the community. Wife and I wanted to move back to this part of the country, and Covington, Kentucky offered me the position to serve as its city manager. If you're not familiar with Covington, it's the urban core of the Cincinnati metro market on the Ohio River, the largest community in northern Kentucky, an old town that's experiencing significant rejuvenation with redevelopment, renovation, rehabbing, people coming in, niche market, small businesses, etc. Exciting place to be. So I applied for this position. I think this is an exciting time for a professional local government manager coming out of what the pandemic delivered to us. We had to deal, particularly with counties, having to deal, taking the lead on public health issues in a significant way. But also we learned that there was pressure to unveil the limits of technology in your communities, this community and all communities. And in Covington, when our school district decided to go for virtual learning, they assumed 70% of its students had access to technology. Their access to technology was the cell phone. You can't do virtual learning on a cell phone. And we did not have a fiber network or an adequate Wi-Fi network to cover the community. So we used $1.3 million of our CARES money to contract with Cincinnati Bell to establish a Wi-Fi network so the students could, primarily for the students to do virtual learning. Secondary benefits then were adults could do job searches, could do academic training themselves, but it also opened the door because the medical facilities weren't allowing visits in their facilities to telemedicine. So it was a good use of our one-time CARES money to improve the community. But that norm is continuing today. Even though the pandemic ended, technology demand isn't increasing, and we have to somehow manage that and make sure it's accessible in our areas. The other thing is, you know by my resume, I've never managed county government. And I'm attracted to it because some of the most rewarding time in my professional career was when I worked in Indiana health centers, where we were providing necessary basic services, whether it was medical or WIC or other social service recommendations to people who needed it. Typically, those are either provided for not-for-profits or through your county government. And therefore, I'd like to get back in and have the opportunity to manage at a county level that provides those services. The other thing is that county governments traditionally are the state government's outreach into the local community. The judicial system is a state function. You have to manage it through the county government. Social services and public health are traditional state services provided through county government to the local areas. Well, I've not had that in my professional profile, and I would like to have that. Also, just investigating what the benefits of living in this part of Pennsylvania, said, let's apply for it and see what happens. And so I'm privileged to be here tonight.